Alright, back here again. We'll pick up where we left off on the first video. Again, I was showing you this here threaded pin has about an 90 thousandth shoulder on it where it sticks through this aluminum bracket so that it can be tightened down on the steel, yet still allowed to rotate in this aluminum bracket right here. Alright, so we have got this portion assembled. You slide this forward, you insert one section of that shoulder through the bottom bracket that's already affixed, set this bracket over the top, slide it over the shoulder using one of your two short screws, which is a 440 sized, a 1/16 Allen wrench. It's a 440 screw, a 1/16 Allen wrench or hex wrench. Put that one in, and then do your other three. Now, when doing these right here, you need to be using a thread locker on them. We in the shop, we customarily use Loctite brand red. A lot of people say, oh, no, you'll never get that back apart. Well, we don't want it to come apart. Certainly not in flight. That's why we use a red. Now, if it need be back in our shop for repair, we can get it apart. We're what they call professionals. Anyway, you should use a thread locker. I prefer or suggest red thread locker. Now, when you are putting thread locker in this short bolt, we want you to get a small amount on the end of a pin, a hex wrench, whatever, and we want you to put just a drop inside the thread. Do not allow it to get on the outside here where it would interfere with this pin's ability to rotate in these brackets as this thing goes through its arc. So again, a small amount of thread locker inside that bore, a small enough amount to where it doesn't leak down and intersect or interfere with the jack screw, and also a small enough amount that it doesn't squeeze out and interfere with the rotating mechanism of the pin. So that's done. You've got your thread locker in. You've tightened these up. You don't have to kill them. Just, just a good, hearty, snug fit will be sufficient. Now, we're going to put some battery power to this, and I have a switch here that I use in the shop. You don't necessarily at home, but you can do this with your controller hooked to your battery. Now, what we're going to do first is we're going to travel this thing to its locked positions. In other words, ready to fly position. You will see here that we've got about 15 thousandths of an inch separation right here between this bearing retaining nut and this threaded pin. Whether this is clear on the video or not, the space between these 2 points needs to be 15, 20 thousandths area, or spacing between the two. I need to put this other short nut in here. Let me do that right quick, just getting ahead of myself. Again, this one needs thread locker on it in a small amount. Now that we've established that we've got this clearance right here, we're going to now drive this in the other direction. Right here. The other point of measurement or adjustment, visual adjustment point that I want to show you is right here. When this jack screw travels down through this threaded pin, when it's at its locked point, in other words, the wing is fully retracted, this jack screw should be flush with this pin or no more than 25 thousandths down in the pin. If you are flush here in the wing retracted position, and if you have about 15 thousandths separation between here and here in the wing down or flying position, then you've got a proper adjustment. Now, how do you modify that adjustment if you don't? That is done back down here with the locking pin. So let's say that we didn't have enough room here. All right, we're going to loosen this, and at that point, all we've got to do is turn this either direction that it needs to go in. We'll unplug it. turn this in either direction that it needs to go in. If it was too close on this side, then we would thread it back away from that, say 1/2 of a turn or 1 full rotation. Either way, but what we have to be cautious of when doing this is that we do not allow this steel thread to protrude beyond the radius of the brass locking pin. So let's say we're going to go 1 full rotation. Generally, when we lay these things out and design them, we intend for your lead wire to come out on this side of the webbing. And that's when they leave the shop, they are set up this way and they are properly adjusted. But your bracketry could be different. There's many variables that can take place. Now, again, with the 5/64 hex wrench, once you have this distance established, you're going to go inside of the brass locking pin and you are going to set or tighten that set screw in there fairly snug amount to keep this from ever rotating under the torque. The next thing you're going to do while the gear is in its retracted position, plug it back in, Mitch. You're going to take this bracket, which uses a 3/32 hex wrench. You see this slot, that's designed to intersect with this pin. Set this on here. Rotate this pin counterclockwise as far as it will go, as you can see, and then tighten this screw down pretty heavily. Then take your pivot pin retaining screw and do the same. Now this is brass. Here, don't know that I'd so much recommend a red Loctite because if you do need to get them back out, this is hard to do. But you're going to need to hold this small surface out here to get a little bit of a snug tightness on it, and then a blue Loctite should be sufficient on that screw. On these 2 screws right here. Should be sufficient. Obviously, as with any flight plan, periodically do a pre-flight before you go up to fly and make sure that all bolts are tight. Now we're going to go through 1 complete cycle of the unit. This is deploying the wing, preparing for flight position. We're going to see it slide all the way in, down into its fully locked position. You hear that? Now, this is slid all the way in. This wing is locked and ready for flight. You have approximately 15 thousandths gap right here. Now we're going to go back to the wing folded position. It's going to intersect this lock that we add right here. This keeps the wing from flopping around while you're taxiing or wind's blowing or whatever. Now, you will see that this jack screw is about 10, maybe 15 thousandths down inside this threaded pin right here. This is all the simple basics of reassembling this thing and adjusting it so that the jack screw has its full amount of travel unobstructed in the locked position and the retracted position. And that's all for today. Thank you very much. Look forward to seeing you again.